As of today, thanks to a combination of horrible governance in Texas and the Supreme Court's lack of action leading up to midnight of last night, Roe v. Wade effectively is done in America. That may change, there is still time, and certainly there are ways that not only the Supreme Court, but also the Democrats, who I will remind you are in charge of this country, could do something about this. But as of right now, effectively reproductive rights don't exist if you happen to live in one of the many red states who are gonna pass new 6-week abortion bans, because the Supreme Court declined to stop Texas's 6-week abortion ban from going into effect. 6 weeks, I will just point out, for those who don't already know this, is not enough time to know. Maybe you know that you're pregnant at that point, but many will not, let alone all of the resources required, particularly in states like Texas, where it was already incredibly difficult to exercise your reproductive rights. Reproductive rights, by the way, that many of the people watching this have had their entire lives from before they were born. This is the progress that we're getting in America, is that being knocked out. Well, let's talk briefly about this bill. SB 8 not only stops abortion at 6 weeks, it also stipulates that any US citizen can sue a Texas abortion provider or sue a person suspected of aiding or abetting abortion services. The plaintiffs don't even have to be residents of Texas to sue Texans suspected of helping people make these private reproductive choices. And should the lawsuit prevail, the person who brought the suit will receive $10,000 plus attorney fees. So when people talk about this being a bounty, it's very specifically a bounty. It's not, any damages that were done to you, you'll get paid, or just your legal fees. It's literally, here's a cash prize if you sue an abortion provider or an Uber driver who took a woman to an abortion provider, or I guess someone that she confided in that told her, yes, you probably should get an abortion. You can get $10,000 because this is America in 2021. So look, we're gonna get into a lot of this, JR. What are your thoughts?
Well, not even like with the incentivizing this being that way. It's more like it promotes it. This is like a different scale on this. So maybe, we had the whole Good Samaritan thought, right? If you see a crime happening, you jump in or you call the cops, you make sure things get ended. They're trying to transition this to be like, this is one of those, it's a crime in every aspect of it. And not only are you a good Samaritan if you report the crime, but you should be incentivized to go and start snooping and finding people, because what motivation do people have to get extra 10K in their pockets, especially in times like this when people are short on money and we have a lot of issues that stem from the pandemic, the economy's going down, the richest people in the country hoard most of the money. So we set up this situation where there's this need for things like this to be implemented from people's mindset of their religious point of view. Then other people who don't care about that part just be like, well, I just need some money. I'll take part in it. Like we have, it's this upside down way of approaching things. Let's incentivize people for being snitches on someone else on something that should be illegal. By the way, it is still legal in the country based off of the Supreme Court decision. But now in states, we can start implementing rules to undercut that and make people enforce it in this weird way.
Yeah, well, still technically legal, kind of, for a very limited period of time, because assuming you even know that you're pregnant, assuming you can even get an appointment to find out for sure. And making it about cash. That's really just the chef's kiss on this whole thing. This is really about your values, isn't it? That you're paying people $10,000 for it. And by the way, there's a lot of context that needs to be added, and this is not the only time we're gonna be talking about this, but let's also bear in mind that Texas deciding that women who've been born and lived their entire lives in a country where in theory they have these rights will now no longer be able to exercise control over their own bodies in a state that is at the head of a year-long conversation about how the government shouldn't be telling me I can't infect people with a virus. That's medical, it's private. So your medical rights are so significant in terms of masking and vaccination that will allow you to kill other people. If you want to get other people sick recklessly, if you want to potentially kill them, who are we to say that that's wrong? Oh wait, it's a fetus? No, we can definitely say you are going to have that child and someone else is going to give it COVID. That's what's going to happen in Texas. Anyway, look, there's a lot that we got to get to. I want to get into some of the immediate reactions to this. Let's jump to this video.
This actually lets private citizens who have zero connection to the person getting an abortion take legal action. How does this even work? Why?
That's right. It means someone with no connection at all could be able to get $10,000, just as we just pointed out. It even means you could sue an Uber driver who drives someone to an abortion clinic. These are laws stricter than what we have in place for someone who would drive someone who's about to commit an act of terrorism to the place where they actually commit this act. So it's a very strict law. Right now, the Supreme Court could act on a piece of this if they take up what would be an emergency application from several of those Texas abortion providers, but they did not act overnight, so
Why?
it does go into effect.
Yeah, so they could decide to do something, they chose not to. Let's just bear that in mind, JR. It's not like they woke up this morning like, I knew there was something we were supposed to rule on. And maybe they will. But there are 7 conservatives effectively on the Supreme Court.
Yeah, it's possible that they're trying to go ahead
and.
Yeah, it's possible they could be going and trying to test the waters and see what the reaction could be. I don't think that's something the Supreme Court generally does. They seem pretty disconnected from the rest of society and opinions and thoughts and everything that come across the board when it comes to stories about political events and agendas and decisions and executive orders and legislation. It seems like they're separate from that most times. But I wonder if in this case, it's a testing of the waters to wait and see if this is really something that they want to do, or if they want to take it up and then become part of the story. Because eventually you're going to have to. Is what Donald Trump was talking about the whole time and trying to implement as many conservative justices as possible so we can go ahead and start changing things. They were setting this up when Trump was like in his 2nd year of office. Let's keep it real. States like this were like, oh, we can't wait. We can't wait. We have legislation we're going to tee up to make sure it's extraordinarily limiting, to make sure we have a pushback on this and see what happens. Now we're here.
Yeah. So we're here. People knew this was coming. Obviously, when Trump gets 3 Supreme Court nominees in 4 years, like how many times? Like we've had guests on that were terrified of this in the run up, and now it's here. Like you get 50 years of reproductive rights, and and again, I'll just point out how stupid are we to believe that? Well, there's struggle, but things are getting better. Yeah, for some people, but in other ways, we're more backwards than we were a half a century ago. And by the way, JR, I don't know if you, and I'll say this to the audience too, I don't know if you've been spending much time on Twitter this morning. First of all, don't. But if you do, you might have seen that there's a lot of finger pointing going on, a lot of trying to assess blame. So there's a bunch of people that are like, if you in 2016 didn't prioritize, getting someone who's going to appoint liberals to the Supreme Court, it's your fault. Then those people point back and say, hey, Biden could do something. He could expand the court. He could whatever. And they're yelling back and forth about who is to blame. Here's the thing. When it comes to American government, this isn't Highlander. We're not trying to find the one person who's responsible. Lots of people are responsible. Lots of people are to blame. Biden totally could do stuff right now. The Democrats could do stuff. First of all, they could give a damn about state government. They could try to make it so that Texas, which does not necessarily have to have a Republican government, might flip at some point. And then we wouldn't get things like the election bill and like this. They could do that in many different states. Biden could expand the court. They could get rid of the filibuster. So this is on Biden, this is on Manchin, this is on Sinema, is on a lot of people. And it's also on the people who haven't given a damn about the Supreme Court for like a decade now. When you tell people it doesn't matter, some people are gonna believe that. And here's the thing, you saying it doesn't matter doesn't make it not matter to the people whose rights are gonna be stripped away. And so if you're mad, good, you should be mad, and you should probably be mad at a lot more people than you are right now, because you have been failed by so many people in politics, in punditry, in the media, all of them. You should be pissed off. I really hope that today people are.
Well, we'll see, but then that's the thing. It's a hard thing is for them to find the culprit. That's the real problem. Because also part of the 2016 people were talking about when Trump came in office and how many Democrats, progressives were disillusioned by the system after what happened with Bernie Sanders and in the primaries and Hillary Clinton and all these. There's so many factors, as you said. So people do get turned off from politics sometimes because then, as we're seeing right now, let's go back to present. Okay, fine, forget 2016. It's 2021, and Joe Biden had all these promises that he made with progressives and things that he said he's gonna push forward that would have more equal measures throughout the country for things like this. As you don't do these things, we're talking like, student loan debt, things like that. As you don't do these things, those are completely separate, am I right? Those are different issues. But it turns off people from even trusting or thinking you're ever gonna do anything for them, because you say it over and over and over again and do nothing, and then go, whatever. I guess Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin are the leaders of the party now. And you let that be your face, people are turned off by you and don't believe anything you're ever gonna say, and we get to these types of decisions.
Yeah, look, the fact that the Supreme Court is allowing the 6-week abortion ban is not just floating in the ether crazy, it is obviously directly contravening past Supreme Court precedent. They have not allowed things less draconic than this to stand. But now, we got the conservatives, so screw it. We don't care what the Supreme Court has said before. We're gonna do whatever we want. They're gonna do whatever they want. They're gonna do it in the issues we're gonna talk about soon about voting. You think you can vote? We'll see. We'll see if you can vote. We're gonna do whatever we can do. That's what we're gonna do. And then what are the Democrats doing? Biden he's got a study to look into if he can cancel a little bit of student loan debt. Manchin and Sinema are like, well, there's this tradition of the filibuster, and I really think that we should abide by the tradition. So and by the way, I get it. It's not that one side believes in power and the other doesn't. They're lying. Like they're not. It would be bad enough if they were being honest. It would be so pathetic if they were being honest. But they're not being honest. They're pathetic and liars at the same time. And so that's what we're caught between these people that will literally do. There's no limit to how crazy they are, how far they will go. And then the Democrats, that the best we get is this mealy mouth lies. And so, look, if you're in Texas, first of all, if you're commenting on this, please show empathy for the people who will actually be affected by this, who are the people of Texas, people who might be pregnant in Texas. And look, I joked about not going to Texas, but if your commentary is seriously leave Texas, move out, I want you to put yourself in the position of people who can't just up and move their entire lives, okay? These are difficult times. Most people don't have the money to just leave if they want to. But on that note, about the money, if you can give, the Texas Equal Access Fund is raising money, matching donations up to $10,000. You can go to tfund.org/NTX Giving Day, tfund.org/NTX Giving Day, the Texas Equal Access Fund, to make sure that the people who desperately need the resources to exercise their reproductive rights in Texas will be able to do so. So that is something you can do today if you're as angry as I am. Any final thoughts on this before we move on, Jared?
I just want to whisper of a dream. Think about the extreme measures and things that Republicans do, specifically in this case, Abbott and the legislator there, for their constituents that come up with whatever it is they want to believe. This minority of people, by the way, that want abortion to be completely outlawed in the country. Imagine some of the things that people on the other side of the aisle may want their politicians to do, as I mentioned before, from healthcare to student loan debt, to climate change. Any of these things that people actually want, if these things actually happened at the pace and definitive nature that a lot of Republicans serve their minority of crazy voters, imagine how much support you'd have. But it's too bold, it's too radical. Is this too bold? Is this too radical? Because it's happening.
Yeah, it's happening. And look, it strikes me that I don't know if we've explicitly said this. I imagine everyone watching this understands the implications here of not just Texas passing the bill, but the Supreme Court allowing it to stand. It's so we're focusing on Texas because Texas just did it. I focus on it in part because I lived there for more than 5 years. How many Republican state legislatures are furiously typing out their 6-week abortion bans and their bounty system right now?
100%.
So how many states are gonna have this in 1 week? How many states are gonna have this in a month? How many millions of people right now live in states where they might technically have reproductive rights, although there's many states where you effectively don't. If you live in Louisiana, good luck exercising your rights there right now, let alone after this. And so soon they will wake up in a state where their rights are a thing that maybe you'll learn about in an outdated textbook or something like that.
And by the way, don't get it twisted, anyone. The politicians that were part of this, when their mistresses have an issue or they need to have a procedure done, they will not be getting reported for $10,000 a pop. They will be getting their procedures done. Trust.
Exactly.
It's always been that way.
Yeah, and as many people rightly say, abortion bans do not ban abortion. They ban safe abortions. That's what they ban. They certainly don't ban rich abortion, and the abortions will still happen. they just won't be safe, and more loss of life might happen. I want to also briefly let you know about the fact that, look, obviously we're focusing on this particular bill for a very good reason, but a lot of bills are going into effect right now. And so let's cover a bit of that right now. Let's see, we've got legislation forbidding balloting methods that the county introduced last year to make voting easier during the pandemic, including drive-through polling places and 24-hour voting, as well as temporary voting locations. The Republicans looked into it, and it turned out that all of those had the horrible side effect of allowing people to vote. So that's gone. Bars election officials from sending voters unsolicited absentee ballot applications and from promoting the use of vote by mail. They literally can't encourage people to vote by mail now. Poll watchers are empowered, so get ready for more Proud Boys berating you as you try to vote in Houston. New criminal and civil penalties for poll workers, new barriers for those who need assistance to vote, such as with translations. That's not a racist thing though at all.
Yeah, you know.
Large Texas counties, just the large ones, have to provide live streaming video at ballot counting locations. Why? I mean, nothing was found to have been done. Like a year spent now trying to show that something untoward was done in these places has come up with nothing. But we should also make them pay the money to do the live streaming too. Let's see, they've banned critical race theory, which nobody was learning about in Texas anyway. Let's see, felonies for protesters blocking roads. So yeah, if reproductive rights are not the only rights that are being infringed on here, the First Amendment, that was fun. If the First Amendment was so important, they would have put it first, okay? We're all about the Second Amendment in Texas. A ban on homeless encampments. Hey, they expanded medical cannabis access. So more call for it this week. Anyway.
By the way,
final thoughts.
Again, this is making illegal promotion of voting in America. Just think about it. It's making it nearly illegal to promote voting in America. Remember those voting campaigns in the 90s? Rock the vote. Bring out all the celebrities. Rock the. Let's have a concert. Rock the vote, right?
Yep.
No, not anymore. We don't want people to vote. Don't vote. And I'm sorry. We don't want people in large cities and states to vote because we know who lives there. And also translation services, so you can't know what's on a ballot, because that's American-like. We're this melting pot. We're the shining example on a hill. Bring me all of your best people from other countries, and we're gonna build this country that's made up of so many other types of people and cultures, which makes us great. Yeah. Unless you wanna vote.
Now, JR, you are pointing out hypocrisy, and I gotta do a fact check for you. They never believed that. So some did, but yeah. Anyway, look, we have a lot of other things to talk about. I'm gonna keep it real right now. I feel like don't so much care about anything else that's going on right now, but there's a lot of other stuff going on. So I'm gonna keep it real with you. Like, we saw this coming. And this is not the culmination. It's gonna get worse. The Supreme Court is showing you who they are. But I'm glad that Breyer's thinking about maybe I'll retire. Maybe I'll wait for Tucker Carlson and Ron DeSantis to be president. For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.